I am joined today by my magical friend Zelda Morningstar, and we are going to be talking about following your passions and your dreams. Hello, Zelda. How are you doing today?
Hello, Sage. I'm doing great. How are you?
I am fantastic, and happy full moon to those of you who are watching this on the full moon.
Yes, happy full moon.
Yes, but the messages will still apply, regardless of the time and space. Yes, okay. So I think a great place to start for people that maybe are meeting you for the first time is to hear about how you started on your spiritual awakening journey. I know that that is a very individualized experience, but it's always fun to hear how people got kick-started. So I would love to hear as well.
Absolutely. I'll try to not be so long-winded, but it was a journey for sure. I was actually raised in a very conservative Christian family growing up. And I remember I was always very attracted to the witch in any story. And it's funny, when I was younger, my parents, I don't remember them saying a lot about like witchcraft and being evil. Like it was just something we didn't talk about at all. Like I kind of feel like it was like not real. It
Hmm.
was only in stories and Disney movies and stuff. But I was always attracted to that darker character in any story. And I essentially was very suppressed in my upbringing, with my individuality. I was allowed to dye my hair bleach blonde, but I couldn't dye it black. I couldn't wear makeup. I couldn't wear
Okay.
black clothes. Um, I always knew I was very like an artist, an individual, but it was not something I was allowed to express when I was younger. But it was very strong inside of me. So, a lot of rebelling in the sense of trying to express myself, but I was still a pretty good kid, pretty scared to break the rules. So I mean, it's not like I did anything crazy except put my makeup on in the car on the way to school and then took it off when I got home. But you know, essentially, when I graduated high school, I was offered a soccer scholarship to a small university in Missouri, and I was living in Pine Top, Arizona. I come from a really small town, and I didn't want to go. I knew I just wanted to go to college and study art. And my parents were basically like, well, if you don't take this scholarship, we're not going to help you pay for college. And I knew I wanted to go study art. So inevitably, I felt very forced into it. But I went and did it for about a year. Right before I left, I got diagnosed with a ton of stomach problems. Essentially, my senior year of high school, especially in soccer, I really noticed my energy levels were not the same. My stomach hurt all the time. Um, Even weight gain, and I'm a small person, so it was very like apparent. And anyway, my mom took me to a regular doctor. They tried to put me on medication, and she was like, "That's not what she needs." Went to a naturopath. They're like, "Oh, it sounds like you're eating a lot of things you're allergic to. Maybe we should do a test." And so they did, and it came back I was sensitive to 82 foods.
Oh my gosh.
Yep. And it was like
Okay.
salt, pepper, sugar, milk, like all the main foods were on this
Like
list.
ingredients that you make everything with.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Things that are in everything.
Uh,
And so, I tried really hard to avoid all those things. But it was really hard because I was playing collegiate sports and I needed sustenance. So that whole year that I was in Missouri, like I was struggling with my health. And then, fun fact, most of our serotonin is produced in our gut. So I was severely depressed. And like, I had gone through things that year, my senior year, that definitely attributed to my depression, but then my health just did not help me anywhere. So, I was suicidal at this time in my life. And though I knew, I feel like I knew I was never actually going to do it because I could not hurt those around me. That
mm,
was always the thing that stopped me. I had already experienced suicide from someone close in my realm when I was 16. And I knew what that does to everybody else. And so, I remember all my darkest times when I really didn't want to be here anymore. And I thought about my mom and how I I could not do that to her. So, I do feel like that is what kept me here. But what really was the breaking point is fast forward about a year after my soccer experience, I left Missouri. I finished the year, but I was like, I can't stay here. So I went back to Arizona and tried to go back to school in Tucson because my sister was going to school there. And I lasted about a semester and then told my parents, I'm dropping out. I want to be a tattoo artist. This is what I've always wanted to do. And I'm going to do it, whether you're going to support me or not. And at this time, my parents were also getting divorced. So my mom, she was moving to the Valley area, which is about 4 hours from Pine Top in Arizona. And so she was like, well, if this is something you want to do, because you don't get paid when you're a tattoo apprentice, she was like, you can move into my spare bedroom and, I'll support you. And so, which was incredible. Like though my mom has been a very big lesson for me with spirituality because we have very different views. She has been one of my biggest supports in my life. And wow, I'm feeling very emotional about
Oh,
that. And
I'm
I'm
sure it's very
very,
healing for your inner children, for your mom to come back around to be like, girl, I got you. Okay.
yeah,
We might differ, but I'm help
yeah.
support.
It's, I don't know, it's interesting. Everyone teaches us something different. And I think her and I teach each other a lot of things. And though we disagree on a lot, she, as a mother, just the epitome of a mother.
Mhm.
So, anyway, I did that and I was working 66 hours a week for no pay as an apprentice at a very big shop in Tempe and being treated really badly. Not by the owner in the sense of like, I mean, I don't want to like out anybody or anything, but it was just I was already in a very bad mental spot, and then left behind everything I was doing to follow my dreams, and then I felt like I was met with nothing but a wall of resistance when I was doing that. And I'm a very hard worker, and I was working 66 hours a week for
Yeah.
no pay. um, but it's I don't know. I got to a point one night where I genuinely did not want to be on this earth anymore. And I checked myself into the hospital because I did not trust myself. And when I did that, I texted my mom telling her I did that because I was living with her and, I was not going to come home that night. And she ended up driving to the hospital. Also, really very quickly learned that uh, they don't really want to help people with mental issues so much. I don't know. At a normal hospital, it was way worse for my mental health that I checked myself in because they just treated me like I wasn't a person.
I worked in mental health facilities for a while, and the patients there were not always treated in the nicest and kindest way.
Yes. And it's not like they did anything insane to me because
Mhm.
I have heard some crazy stories, but just the minute that why I told them I was there, it's like they dehumanized me.
Mhm.
And anyway, my mom came to the hospital and she ended up spending the night with me there, which I'm very thankful for because I'm afraid if she hadn't, they would have sent me deeper into the realm of the
Mhm.
hospital and then maybe I don't know.
Yeah.
But inevitably they never gave me any medication. By the morning they were super busy that night. I was not even in a room for most of the night. I was in a bed just in a hallway somewhere. Again, not a good place to be when you're feeling like you don't want to be alive.
Mhm.
So anyway, I after that, um, I had expressed to my family how depressed I was, and I kind of grew up in a family where I don't know, mental illness was not a huge thing, and they didn't really think it was real at first. And anyway, I ended up going to pretty consistent therapy after that, and I went to a psychiatrist and got put on. I think it was I don't know. I ended up on Zoloft, which is just an antidepressant,
Mhm.
which really helped me. And that really helped me out of that hole I was in. And I had a few months prior to this, I had gone to a witchcraft store in Tucson to visit my sister. And when I walked in, I had this immense feeling come over me. And I remember just, I felt like I was home.
Oh.
And I remember saying to the owner there, I was like, is this stuff real? And I remember I offended him because he was like,
Mhm.
of course it is. Like, I know it is. And I was like, I'm so sorry. Like, I did not mean to offend you. I was 19, you know, and
Mhm.
I was like, I feel so connected to the stuff. And I don't even know what it is. And so, you know, he showed me a few different books and was like, well, you need to read.
Okay.
You know, he's like, there's a lot to know, and you just start reading before you start doing. And I was very attracted to the tarot, divination specifically. So got some books on that. Anyway, flash forward back to my night in the hospital, whatever. Um, During that night, I had this feeling come over me, and it wasn't even really a voice. It was just this feeling, and it was this connection to spirit. And I felt, I don't know, though I still felt severely depressed, like I felt like I had a reason to be here.
Mhm.
And in that moment, you know, I once I started doing therapy and I got on an antidepressant, that was the time that I got really into studying witchcraft and understanding it and connecting with it. And that was when I really felt like the antidepressant that I then was on for about a year and a half was blocking me from getting deeper. Whether that was true or not, I
Mhm.
felt that way. And so
Your body
I
started to
just,
reject it.
yeah, it
Yeah.
will. And I also noticed I'm not an angry person, and it was making me angry. Like, I felt like I was like excited when someone like wanted to like have a heated conversation where we had different opinions. Like, I was like, oh, like, and I'm not like that. So I noticed it was not, you know, doing something great in that realm, but I also felt like it was this block. So I got off of it. And when I first got off, it was terrible. I thought I was not going to be okay because I realized all my anxiety came back. And I was like, oh, wow, yeah. But I worked through it, kept with the therapy, and then I never had to get back on it, you know, and it's been almost 10 years now, which, you know, life is up and down all the time, but it, it was a huge, finding my spirituality gave me purpose in a way that nothing else ever has. And I hope that was not too all over the place, but it dug me out of the darkest hole I was ever in. I've never have I gone back to that place. Like, the further I got into my spirituality and I started doing tarot readings for myself, and when I felt that connection, when I was like, what the, like, how do you know that I'm feeling this way? You know, you're just a card. But then I realized it wasn't a card, it was the connection to the divine. And yeah, so honestly, the way I found spirituality is it saved my life, really, when it comes down to it. And yeah.
I've had spookily similar experiences. In childhood,
Totally.
and that spirituality also saved me as well from some really dark places in my life. What would you say is the difference between religion and spirituality? And this is not me or us saying anything negative about religion necessarily, just it sounds that you found some things in spirituality that religion was not able to give you from that household experience that you grew up in.
So I think for me, like, I think when I first went down the path of spirituality, I was like very anti-religion because of my upbringing. Um, but around the time I got into witchcraft, I was actually studying a lot of different religions, like Hinduism, Satanism, because I also, you know, there was so much like stigma against witchcraft that I was like, well,
Hmm.
is it the same as Satanism? And I was like, nope, it's
Hmm.
not. Um, anyway, I just wanted to be educated. So I read a lot of different things. And I remember most religions, well, even Satanism, I guess I would put into this bubble. Every religion has one basis: love. That is the basis of them all.
Hmm.
And I genuinely believe spirit, God, however you want to classify it. I think we all have our own God moment. And I think God presents himself to us the way we'll understand it. And so, like, I genuinely believe every religion, like, of course, they're different. They're in different cultures and they work for these people in these different cultures. And if it works for you and you're not doing harm to anyone, I genuinely don't see a problem with it at all. Um, and I think the thing I just liked about spirituality is that, as I've talked to you before, like, I am chaos. I am I am not just one thing, and I never will be. And I think I've always known that. And so, I remember growing up. There's a specific story in the Bible that I just could not get behind. And I genuinely can't remember the names, but it was like God told one of his, I don't know, disciples, prophets, told him to kill his son, to
Oh,
have
the
like complete,
Abraham.
yes, to have complete trust in him. And obviously he's like about to kill his son, and then God's like, no, don't do it.
It's like,
I
gotcha.
was testing you.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
And as a child, I was like, that's insane.
Yeah,
Like,
is this gonna happen to me?
yeah. I was like, why would I want to worship a God who would ever tell you to do that?
Hmm.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm getting a phone call.
It's fine.
Okay, I declined it.
Okay.
So yeah, like, I just remember that was the first time when I was in church as a kid that I was like, I don't resonate. Like, that's not my God. Like, no. And I remember talking to my mom about it, and she was like, yeah, well, the whole thing was that you have to have all your trust in God. And I'm like, okay, but if God tells me to kill my kid, I'm not going to do that.
I have trust and faith in somebody who's telling me to do wackadoo things.
Yes, that
Okay.
was
My
exactly
God does
it.
not do that if there is a God. Right?
Right.
Yes.
So yeah, I would just say, like, I don't know. I think if your religion is based on fear, and if it's based on ostracizing people just because they don't believe what you believe, even though what they believe is not harmful, I'm not cool with that. So that's, you know, my mother and I have differences on just terminology that really bothers her, but it doesn't bother me because I'm
Hmm.
like, well, it's the same thing. How do you not see that? But again, to each their own, it's, if it works for you and you're preaching love, then, like, again, I don't see an issue in that.
Yeah, I think that there are different flavors of every religion or spirituality. Even spirituality can be very oppressive and like this
Yes.
construct that you're working in. And I like that you brought up Satanism. I haven't done like a whole lot of research in there, but from what I have seen is people who are really just on the brighter side of that are like, we're just into hedonism. Like we want everybody to enjoy themselves and not put
Yes.
themselves in
It's a
boxes.
very indulgent religion.
Yeah, and it's just like let's all be individuals, like and not, adhere to societal norms and things. It's not always like super wacky.
Right.
Right. So I think that's a great piece of advice to study different types of religions and see where there's co-insecting viewpoints and truths.
Yes, like, there's a lot of Hinduism that I really resonate with. Though I'm not Hindu and I do not subscribe to, like, everything, because there are
Mhm.
certain pieces I don't. But yes, I think it's a really good thing to always read about other religions, because how can you judge something you don't understand?
Yeah, exactly. And speaking of that, are there any witches that you really resonated with when you were a kid, like specific ones, or is it just more so witchcraft as a ideology?
So my favorite movie growing up when I was young was The Wizard of Oz.
Okay.
And though I loved Glenda, I loved the Wicked Witch of the
Yes.
West.
I feel you.
um I just loved her green skin and the pointy hat, and, like, I was always attracted to the darker things, and, like, nobody in my family is like that. Like, and I always was like into cemeteries and bones, and my parents were like, "What is wrong with you?" And but for me, like that was just so comforting. So I guess that witch, and also I remember like in The Little Mermaid when Ursula is the beautiful version of Ursula as a human.
Mhm.
I really liked her. um I also remember watching Aladdin when Jasmine, I think it's Aladdin 2. She like wears the red robe or something. Like
Okay.
Jafar takes her and makes her dark. I just the darker aesthetic I've always been attracted to. So yeah, those are the ones I remember the most.
Cool. It's giving macabre.
Yes.
Edgar Allan Poe energy.
Yes,
Yes.
100%.
I think that's great though, because you are a representator of how beautiful things can also be found in the dark. It doesn't always have to be rainbow, sparkly unicorn, energy. It can also be like, hey, not necessarily death in and of itself, but just, there's cycles to life. It's not always going to be bright and sunny.
Yes. And I feel like that was something I understood from a young age, but I think my parents were worried when I would be attracted to things like that. And like, I get it.
Right.
Like, I'm not a parent, and I think being a parent is one of the most genuine things you can do on this life, on this earth, and in this life. And, I genuinely don't hold resentment to my parents for suppressing me the way they did. Like, sure, I did when I was younger, but now it's like, I mean, I think it made me into who I am in the sense that I had to fight for it. It almost was a drive to like be who I am. But yeah, I also think they just wanted the best for me and didn't want me to go down a road that was maybe lead me to bad things. So it all happens for a reason.
Yeah. My son likes to watch a lot of psychological like horrors, and I'm just like, bro, subconscious. Okay, it's not for me. Okay, because I
Right.
get scared.
Right.
But I have to remember, that does not affect everyone the same. Like some
Right.
persons are more drawn to that, and that's fine. And they love
Right.
that. And it's not leading to anywhere. So I have to check my own like projections from childhood of like, it's not evil. It's not whatever. It's just this
Right.
vibe. Okay. Yes. Well, I would also love to hear about your name, Zelda Morningstar, and where that comes from. Much like you, or much like me, you have changed your name from your birth name.
Yeah. So, when I was younger, I don't feel like I had an issue with my name until I was like in more like grade school and like writing it on papers and stuff. And I remember just thinking I thought it was so boring and bland, and I
Hmm.
didn't resonate with it. And especially when I started to meet other people who had like unique names, and I was like, oh, why is this my name? And um I remember specifically as a kid, I came across The Legend of Zelda
Mm.
and loved that name. I was like, oh my God, Zelda? Like that could be a name? Like, and I played that game growing up. I wasn't a huge gamer, but I had the Nintendo 64, whatever. Um, and, you know, continue with my life because I didn't think about changing my name. But as I got older in high school and I learned that a lot of famous people did change their names, one of my biggest inspirations is Bob Dylan. And though his name was Robert, his name was Robert Zimmerman. And then he one day just it came to him and he's just Bob Dylan. That's what I'm gonna go by. And also Lana Del Rey, her name's Elizabeth Woolridge Grant.
I did not know that.
Yeah,
Lana is much more fitting for her. Yeah.
exactly. And so, I wouldn't say like fame was something that I, as a kid, was like, oh, I'm gonna be famous. Like,
Mhm.
not something I wanted. It was it was more of I just wanted to be who I was in the most authentic way. And I felt like I didn't resonate with my given name. So I remember my senior year of high school, I was in a graphics class with one of my friends. And at this point, I knew I was going to be going to Missouri for college. And I was like, I don't want to change my name. And I was talking to my friend Nate, and he was like, okay. And I was like, I really like the name Zelda. Like, I think I'm just going to start going by it when I graduate and I move. And he was like, I remember he's kind of weird about it. And I remember there was this other judgy girl in our class who didn't really like me very much because who knows why. And I remember hearing her like making some snarky remarks about it. And I remember in that moment, like just realizing everyone's always going to have something to say no
Mhm.
matter what you're doing.
Yep.
And in that moment, I was like, no, when I go there, I'm going to introduce myself as Zelda and I'm going to go by that. And it's really funny. I remember being on the soccer field in college that year. Someone was yelling my name and I hadn't registered I was Zelda yet.
Oh yeah, the transition. Yeah.
And they were like, I was yelling at you. And I was like, well, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Because I was still connected to my other name, you
Mhm.
know? And so anyway, that was where Zelda came from. And then I met my husband in 2019 and we got married in 2022. And when I met him, um, I mean, wow, what a whirlwind of a spiritual experience just meeting him was and connecting with him. The moment I kissed him, I knew he was the one I was going to marry.
Oh,
Like it was beautiful. And we continually teach each other so much. I'm so grateful for him in my life. But we always say that if we were like a god or goddess, I would be Persephone and he'd be Hades. And
hmm.
that was kind of the theme of our wedding as well. And
What a cool wedding.
yeah, it was fun. It was low key, but it was perfect. I'll have to show you pictures
I would
sometime.
love to see the pictures. Yes.
And so anyway, we both are into the darker, obviously, aesthetic and stuff. And um also just the Morningstar in general, was known as the North Star for a lot of oh my god, indigenous people,
Got it.
and used it as like a guiding light, right? And I loved that meaning behind it. There's also Lucifer Morningstar, which like I also, being an ex-Christian, like I always remember thinking like, okay, Lucifer sounds like the cool one. Like he's the one
Right.
who's like, oh God, you want me to be like this? No, fuck you. I'm gonna do what I want. Like,
Like he's
also
down here
sorry.
having a good time. Yeah.
Yes. Also sorry if you don't want me to curse. I will
Yeah,
stop.
it's fine. It's fine.
But yeah. So anyway, I genuinely can't remember if it was my husband or me that was like, we should just change our last name to Morningstar when we get married. And I mean, whoever said it, the other agreed, kind of 100%. And we were like, yeah, like we are the Morning Stars. So yeah, because he didn't love his last name and I didn't love mine. And so we just were like, let's make our own. And so ever since we got married, I have gone by Zelda Morningstar. And that is how that name came to be.
That is so cool that you both changed your last name. I saw a TikTok about that a couple weeks ago about, as a couple, you can just pick a whole new name instead of going one way or the other. And I was like, oh, what an innovative idea. And then here's somebody that actually did it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's super cool.
There's no rules. They
Right.
tell you there are, but there's not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did your family, if you're okay talking about it, of course, but how did your family um interpret you changing your name?
So that's been the hardest one for sure. Also just any friends who know me from childhood, I think it's
Hmm.
just hard for them. And I get that. So like it doesn't like hurt me when they call me that. I won't lie, I don't like being called my
Hmm.
old name because yeah, I didn't really mention this, but a big part of stepping into Zelda was letting go of the past traumas I had been through as my younger self with my old name. And my senior year specifically, I went through a pretty big breakup at the end of the year where like then I was like very sad and depressed. And then but my friends just wanted to party because like we're out of high school. And so they all hung out with my ex, and I felt very just abandoned, and
Surprised.
yes. And I don't hold resentment to my friends for this because they were doing what they needed to do at that time. They needed to celebrate, and I would have, but I was so restricted. Like even at that time, I wasn't 18 yet because I didn't turn 18 until I was in college my freshman year. So I was just so put in a box, and I just feel like when someone calls me that name, a lot of sometimes I can feel it. Like
It's
it
like
all kind of
jarring.
comes back. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh. But as the older I'm getting and healing those parts of my inner child, like it doesn't like trigger me or anything. But especially because yeah, I don't think my mom or dad are ever gonna call me Zelda. And that's okay. Um yeah, my sister doesn't really even try either. And again, it's just hard, like if she had asked me 10 years ago to start calling her something different, I might have been weird about it too. I don't know. So it's, I really prefer to be called Zelda, but you can't let that throw a wrench in your day just because someone like refers to you as a past self. But yeah, yeah.
Do you feel that after you kind of went through that transition of changing your name, that you felt like a big weight was dropped from past versions? And not even like past versions necessarily, but just traumas like you were talking about. Like, could you feel that kind of shed off once you're like, okay,
Yes.
this is what we're doing, period?
Yes. Like I know I've watched one of your videos before where you kind of talked about like, creating this new self to like
Hmm.
hop into, and like realizing it's like a different timeline and a different part of you. And yeah, I don't know. I just think like that was the beginning of everything. Was like when I decided to not be who I was and to be who I really wanted to be. Um, and yeah, of course, in the beginning, there was just so many snarky people that were like, "That's dumb," and I was like,
Hmm.
"Again, Bob Dylan, Lana Del Rey, y'all. Like,
Right.
why can't I do it too?" So, I will say, as I got into spirituality and I read that our name holds meaning, and I
Mhm.
calculated my birth name and then what I go by now, I do resonate with my birth name's energy much more. I So I think it's interesting. Who knows the real reason that in this life I decided to give myself my birth name and then decide to change it. I'm not sure, but I I do resonate with the energy like that I calculated for my new name too, but I actually like resonate more with my original. So I don't know. Yeah, names are interesting.
Yeah, for sure. Have you ever had somebody be inspired by you changing your name?
um I'm not sure. I've not had anyone like tell me that. I've definitely, people like, "Oh, your name's so cool." And like if people straight up ask me like,
Is
"How
that
did you
your,
get
is that
that
your real
name?"
name?
Yeah,
Yeah.
then I'll be like, "Oh, I changed it." Because a lot of people be like, "Oh, your parents were so cool." I was like, "Actually, they were very conservative and did not give me this name." But yeah, yeah, I would say I've just had people be like, "Oh, okay." Like, so maybe I did inspire people and they just didn't tell me,
Yeah.
but yeah.
You might be inspiring someone right now. That's why I kind of want to dig into it a little bit more because that's such a big change for persons. Or like these drastic things. Like when I started coloring my hair, it was like this big, big, big deal. And then once you live into it, you're like, oh, it's not, right? But it is in the beginning, and we forget about that. And so I think you are an inspiration to others of, hey, you can change yourself at any time. You need to do what's right for you. There are no rules.
Yes. And the name was just the initiatory because I literally graduated high school 2 weeks later. I dyed my hair from bleach blonde to black because that's what I wanted always, and my parents wouldn't let me. And it was like dyed my hair black. started going by Zelda, started getting tattoos. Like I just did everything I always wanted to do. So yeah, I think if you're in a world of hurt where I don't know, you get down to such a dark place, sometimes it's a lot easier to hop out of that by just creating a completely new version of yourself than trying to tend to those past hurts in that moment. I think subconsciously that's what I was doing, though I wasn't aware of it.
I agree with you. Like, we're all very self-aware and we're always healing and things like that. But then sometimes we're just digging at things that don't need to be digged at, and we just need a hard pivot. You're like, I'm just this new person.
Yes.
These are the
And that's
new,
where I
these are the new,
was.
yeah, these are the new
I just
personality
needed to
traits, new clothes.
jump out of that vessel.
Yes. Yeah, that can be very healing. So with your artistry, because you were going to school and studying and, practicing it in your own life, what made you take a pivot into tattooing?
So when I was a kid, I was always obsessed with tattooed people when I see them at the grocery store and I would like point at them. And my parents were always like telling me they were like bad people.
Mm.
And I remember being like, well, how do you know that? And like, of course we have history, right? Like we have gangs and a lot of past people who were heavily tattooed were in some kind of like in prison or you know what I mean? Like there was a stigma to it for a long time. And I feel like that stigma genuinely started to change the year I apprenticed, which was 2016. I started to notice it was just becoming much more normalized. But before then it wasn't. Like, tattoos used to be like, oh, you have a tattoo on your hand, you can't work here. You know
Mm.
what I mean? Like it was definitely pretty like that. But aside from that, as a kid, I loved stickers. I would put stickers on
The gateway into
everything.
tattoos.
Yes, I genuinely think if you're a sticker addict as a kid, you're probably gonna love tattoos when you get
Okay.
older. Because I remember I covered an entire door in stickers. And when we moved, my parents were so mad. Like, they were just like, how did you even do this? I just wanted it to not be plain.
Mhm.
So yeah, I always liked to take something that was plain and make it look different. And I was always very into fashion and like individuality and like, I knew I was going to be covered in tattoos. Like from such a young age, I knew that. And it's funny when I got my first tattoo, I got my whole stomach blasted when I was 18 or 19. I think I
I'm going
just
all the
turned
way in.
19. Yes. And
Okay.
oh my God, of course, too, like it was a man and they were heavy handed and it hurt so bad. And I just remember like laying there for the first 10 minutes thinking, I will not be able to have tattoos. Like this hurts so bad.
Oh.
I just like, because I knew I would be tattooed, I never even thought about the pain. Like I was just like, well, I'm going to get it done. It's fine. And then I realized that you have to work for this. Like you have to earn this shit.
Mhm.
But 20 minutes of getting tattooed, your endorphins kick in, and it's crazy what the body can manage, even when it's screaming at you to stop.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I always knew that I was into tattoos. That was never, I would say I didn't know I was going to be a tattooer because I did not have the confidence in my abilities to draw for a really long time. Because there were people in my high school who I remember there was this one girl, she she was incredible. Like she would draw these insane things during an hour, during a class. And like I thought it was insane. I was like, how
Mhm.
how are you so talented? And I remember thinking in that moment, well, if she's this talented now, there's no way I would ever be able to do that. And it wasn't until I think I was 19 or 20, I was dating a guy who was apprenticing to tattoo. And it's funny, I don't even think he ended up becoming a tattooer, but
Okay.
he was the one that led me into the realm because he was doing it. And I liked the style he did. And so he told me, well, you just have to draw all the time. And so I did. I was also really depressed at that time and it was very healing to draw. So you know, I realized I have to draw every day. every single day if I want to do this. And within a couple months, it was crazy the improvement I made. And whether that came from a past life now that I like started to harness or made it in this life. But um yeah, yeah. I always knew that I loved tattoos. I just didn't know I was going to be a tattooer.
Amazing. How do you get over the fear of putting something permanently on people's body? Because that would trip me up. I'd be like, it's one thing to put it on myself, and another to put it on somebody else.
I will say it took me 10 years like to do it because like I said, I apprenticed in 2016 and I um just started like full-time tattooing like a year and a half ago. So um when I quit my apprenticeship because I was going through so much with my mental health, that was when I actually got really into doing custom shoes and painting shoes for a long time. And there was a long time where I was like, well, I just don't think I'm meant to tattoo. um I think I'm just maybe meant to be a shoe artist, and do this kind of stuff. And um it really wasn't until I moved to Flagstaff in 2023, right before we moved here, I came across my old folder of all my tracings from when I apprenticed, and I just started crying. And like my husband was like, "What's going on?" And I was like, "Oh my god, I've always wanted to tattoo. This was something I really wanted to do."
Mhm.
And he was like, "Dude, you can still do it. Like, you're so young. Like, what?" Like, I think I was probably 26 at that time.
Mhm.
And yeah, he was like, you can still do it. And so when we moved to Flagstaff, I set that intention. Like, I'm going to tattoo some way or another once I get to Flagstaff. And I cannot tell you the divine orchestration that happened when I moved here of meeting someone who was getting tattooed by a person. And then that person was already following me on Instagram for years because they liked my work. And then that person was a tattooer that was like, hey, like I have a private studio, you could do what I'm doing. And then like her name's Kate Penn. Shout out Kate. She is incredible, angel on this earth. And she basically had her own studio, had gone through a lot of negative things in the industry, and was like, girl, you can do what I'm doing. Let me help you out.
Well,
And so she did.
we love
And
women helping women.
yes.
Yes.
And then it was so divine timing because then she was moving to Colorado in September and was like, take over my studio.
Wow.
Yeah, it was. And oh, like I just can't say enough good things about her. Like she cut me a huge deal of all her furniture and was like, you'll help me out by taking it. And it helped me out immensely by having everything I needed without having to spend an insane amount of money because obviously starting your own business is a lot. So um yeah, just timing, divine timing. But yeah, it's man, I think to be a tattooer, you have to have a level of confidence in your abilities. And it took me a while. I was not ready in 2016. I thought I was, but I wasn't.
Do you feel that, well, that's probably a testament to you being a very intentional person too, of like, I gotta make sure I do this quickly. Do you feel that upon answering the call of part of the soul mission that you have here, everything started falling into place when you finally said,
100
yes, I can do
100%.
this?
Like even to the extent of like that's how I found my husband too. Like I yeah, like I started asking the universe for things and telling it where I wanted to go. And without even like at that time talking to my guides really, I wasn't really doing that. It was more of just like, hey universe, like if you can help me out, like that'd be great. So yeah, I mean, now I live my life with such intention. It's crazy because I used to not at all. So yeah, I mean, I think that makes a huge difference for sure.
Totally. Do you have any advice for other women or female identifying persons that want to not necessarily work in tattoo the industry, maybe they want to, but just in male dominated fields because I'm not an expert in tattooing, but I know that it's hardcore for apprentice women in tattooistry. So what would be your piece of advice to stay sovereign and confident working with male dominated fields?
So I want to say this, and I don't want to say it in a way of like anything against men because I love men. I think we need the balance. Like when I say I'm a feminist, like I'm a real feminist. I believe in the equal of sexes. I do not think that women are superior. I feel like a lot of feminists kind of haze those lines. And it's too bad because I feel like the word feminism now has a weird stance to
Hmm.
it sometimes, and it shouldn't because it's supposed to mean equality. But anyway, for me personally, being so incredibly sensitive, I would say try to find a shop that has as many women as you can. Try to connect with women in the field, even if they're not at your shop, because I don't know, and not even to say because some women are so masculine that they are attributing to the
Like
same.
holding those traits you're trying to get away from.
Yeah, so it's,
Yeah.
it doesn't necessarily just because you're a woman doesn't mean you're going to be more soft and sensitive. But I think for me, being so sensitive and the shop I was apprenticing at, I think it had about like six males, one female. But of course, that female was very masculine.
Hmm.
And she was awesome, but she acted just like the guys did. So, yeah, I needed sensitivity and it just wasn't there for me. And I remember the female at that shop when I apprenticed, she told me, she was like, you need to get thicker skin. You're not going to make it. And, to an extent, it did help me because I think we live in a world right now that sometimes we're like we're too fragile. Like we're like walking on eggshells not to hurt people's feelings. And like I don't think that's healthy at all. Um, but at the same time, like there has to be a balance. And
Direct with love.
yes, yes,
Okay. Yes.
exactly. So like, I don't know, my biggest advice was really try to connect with some female tattooers, even if you or not even tattooers, but just in a industry, try to find your women that will help like lift you up and support you, even if you can't work with them directly. Um, because I just think that we're different, male and female, like again, whether or not of however you identify, but the energies can be so different. And like with women is where I have found comfort and so much healing. So yeah, I don't know. That's a tough one.
I mean, that could even be in resonance for, males that have more feminine energy about them too. Like that could be incredibly healing to
100%.
find some women to be around to foster that energy within them and say, like, hey, it's okay. We
Yes.
embrace that over here. Okay.
Yes.
Absolutely. So you do offer tarot and oracle readings, and then I know we talked about how you kind of got into tarot with walking into the witchy store. How did you decide to give readings to people? Like, what was the um Kickstarter for that?
So for me, tarot started as a self-help tool because I was very depressed at that time. And I swear to you, it felt like a little therapist in a little deck.
Yeah, facts.
And I just, I'm so sensitive and I'm such an empath that I pick up on so many energies constantly. And when I didn't know I was an empath, I was so overwhelmed by energies that were not even my own. And the tarot would really help identify that. So when I was feeling overwhelmed, I would sit down with my deck and I would just ask it, how am I feeling right now? And I would just read that. And like that alone was enough for me to understand whether or not it was my energy or if it was someone else's. Um, but yeah, like I started doing it for myself a lot. And then gradually a couple friends and my sister, if they came over, um, but at that point it was like I would pull the cards and then I would read them directly, the thing in the book, and be like, does it resonate?
Mhm.
um and I did that for a long time. And then around the time I met my husband, we had a favorite bar downtown that we like to go to, that we had a lot of mutual friends that we met at. And I would just bring my deck of cards with me. And it's funny, the more I've gotten to spirituality, I've read so many things for like, don't do tarot readings at bars. Like, such a bad place, like, because of, people being intoxicated and
Mhm.
whatever. And I do think there's truth to that 100%. But, you know, I feel out the energies around me before I do a reading. And if I
Mhm.
feel comfortable, then I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
So, it was crazy actually. So I started doing readings for my friends at the bar. They'd all resonate. I would never charge them, maybe they'd give me a drink or something. And right before COVID happened, so I'm pretty sure this was February of 2020. And we were good friends with the owners of the bar. And one of the owners was hanging out with us, and he wanted a reading. And he wanted to know, should I open, because they had just opened this bar maybe like 2 years prior. They were very
Mhm.
new and they were very successful. And he wanted to know if he should open another bar in another like city close by. And the tarot literally was like, no, the
Okay.
economy is about to break.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
It was like super like, and then it was like, nurture what you have, but do not do
Mm.
that. 1 month later, COVID happened. And I remember, and they survived, and they ended up opening their new bar last year, and it's doing great. But it was crazy. Like, and everyone was like, oh my God, like you were right. And I was like, dude,
What a
the cards
blessing. What a
know.
blessing for him. Yeah.
And that kind of gave me the confidence that I was like, oh shit, like I do know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that's a huge
And
premonition.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of when I I didn't really have a following on Instagram yet. It wasn't until I think 2021 that Doc Martens reposted a pair of my shoes that like
Oh, sweet.
skyrocketed. Yeah, it was awesome. I probably only had 1,200 followers on Instagram for 5 6 years, and then that happened and I went up to 10K in a year. Of course, after that, Instagram's algorithm has completely failed me and it's
Mhm.
impossible to grow now. um which is why we're trying TikTok. But yeah. So yeah, it was that time that I just put on my Instagram, like, I do readings if you want one. Was barely charging at that time, probably like, I don't even know, $40 a reading, maybe 30. But yeah, the more I did readings for people and realized I was helping people, and I was like, oh, okay, well, I should probably charge a little bit more.
Mhm.
So I've, gradually done that. But yeah, that's how it began.
Do you think that it was more of a challenge or scarier to do tattoos or to start doing readings?
mm, that's a tough one. They were both terrifying.
Yeah.
Because like tattoos are like, okay, this is permanent in your skin forever. And then
Tarot readings could be
readings,
like that too.
yes,
Yeah.
because they're just so personal, right?
Yeah.
And like, also just like, I don't know. I think luckily I haven't read for many people who don't believe, because I feel like
Mhm.
I just wouldn't even want to read for someone like that. Um, Luckily I've always feel like I've had that trust that has really made me feel more comfortable to do one for people. But I mean, like I mean, my pits are sweating right now. Like, I have anxiety. Like, I'm nervous when I do anything. Like, and I think for a long time I did not. I thought if something made me feel nervous, then I didn't like resonate with it, and I wasn't
Mhm.
supposed to do it. And then I realized, nah, girl, you just have mad anxiety about
Yeah.
everything. And so, yeah, I mean, I would say last year was kind of the year that I was like, you have to face these fears you have, or you're never going to actually do what you want. And I mean, I'm so thankful for my husband. He was always my guinea pig with tattoos. I think it was last year for Valentine's Day, we weren't doing like great financially. And I was like, I don't know if I can get you something crazy because I'm a gift giver. Like, I will spend all my money on you if I can. Like, I just love to. And he was like, well, like, give me a tattoo. Like, I really want this certain tattoo. And I was like, oh, I don't know. Like, it's been a long time. And he's like, I don't care. Just like do it. Like, and
Hmm.
he's just so supportive. And yeah, so just being able to do that first tattoo after a long time on him really helped me. And then I had a few other friends that were super down that let me do a few. And once I did a couple, also Kate helping me along the way, like me
Hmm.
asking her questions and being able to ask her questions. In my apprenticeship, I swear I couldn't even ask a question. It was like I thought I was learning. Like, aren't I supposed to ask questions? But she was wonderful, and so many just simple mistakes I was making, she made me aware of, and yeah. But I mean, it's still every time I get down to tattoo, I'm still like, okay, we're doing this, like it's a body altering forever, it's something that you have to take really seriously. So I finally now, like, I'm not freaking out when I'm tattooing now. It feels so comfortable now, but there is a level of anxiety to it always, I would say.
That before I do anything, like whether it's like workshops, sessions with clients, like I'm anxious before that, and I've been doing it for a long time, and I still get anxious. And so I like to tell people that we're wanting to get into this, like, hey, that doesn't necessarily go away if you're an anxious galley. Okay, you're a very hypersensitive person. You just decide one day, I'm gonna do it anyway.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
You do
It's
that
just
every
facing
time.
the fear.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, speaking of tattoos and energy healing and readings, you have a new spiritual gift that has come online that I am super excited to share with everyone about energetic transmission tattoos. I would love for you to tell us what those are.
Yeah. So, energetic transmissional tattoos was something that came into my mind probably about a year ago when I was really like embarking on opening my own studio. And I I knew I wanted to do it for a really long time, but it really wasn't until I had my session with you that I realized it was already something I could be doing. Um, so, clairtangency, the ability to be able to charge intention into something with your hands. Um, I was already doing that with like my painted shoes that I was doing for others. Memorial shoes are one of my favorite things to do for clients where they will give me, brand new pair of shoes and I will infuse the energy of a past loved one into their shoes so that they can walk with them with those shoes.
A walk
Yeah,
with them. That was just that is so endearing.
right? Like
Yes.
I love doing those types of shoes. And I experienced death in my life when I was 16, and I know it happens for some people even younger, but for me it changed my entire life at that moment. And um someone who was already very interested in like the occult and like death and stuff, and then actually experiencing losing someone, but understanding that they're still very much here. Yeah, I loved the idea of being able to help people with that, and also to give them the comfort to really feel the energy of that loved one by putting a pair of shoes on. And so I knew I had the ability of clairtangency. Um, but yeah, I wouldn't say it really like crossed pathways too much with tattooing for a really long time. And I think that was because I needed to really gain the skill and craft of tattooing first,
Mhm.
which makes sense. So anyway, what they are is it's essentially a tattoo that is charged with intention for a specific energetic thing. So whether that is healing past traumas, whether that's taking on the energy of something, like you want to be more courageous or strong in your life, you could do a tattoo for that. Um, a tattoo for overcoming depression. You could do something for that as well. Like it's genuinely an endless thing, it's basically a tattoo that's a spell. So you can do a spell about anything.
Oh, love that. Spell
So
tattoos.
yes, exactly.
From the psychic herself.
Yeah.
Yes.
Um, so yeah, I've been tattooing myself with a couple different energetic tattoos recently, and I genuinely feel different in a very positive way. So yeah, I'm so excited to be doing those, and that is definitely where I'm trying to put my focus on my business right now. I would like to be doing those more than regular tattoos, but still love regular tattoos. But
I love that. It's a permanent reminder of, like you said, intentions, but infused by an energy healer, a practitioner, that's
yes,
helping you create that and put it on your body. That's amazing.
yes,
Yes.
but also the idea that actually you gave me was that I, don't have to be the one to do the tattoo, that I can also create these tattoos for people and email it to them so they can get it tattooed by someone near them. That way, if you live super far away and you can't make it to me, but you like what I do, I can still totally create that energy for you. And by me intentionally charging that design, even though I won't be the one to tattoo it, it will still work.
I love that. And you're in Flagstaff.
Yes.
Yeah, so you can give them to people all around the world.
Right.
Yes. We also talked about, if it's okay with me bringing this up, about doing upgrades on the tattoos.
Yes.
Okay, so something that we had spoken about is because everything is quantumly connected, just like you would go in and do a software update on your computer, everyone you give tattoos to, those tattoos are going to strengthen the more you strengthen as a practitioner as well. And you going in and having those intentions, okay, everybody is going to get a boost of energy with these in the
Yes.
astral, in the akasha.
Yeah. Now that you say that reminder, I should probably be telling people that. I don't think I've been really telling people that.
Sometimes you
But
know it, but you got to articulate.
right. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Because that's exactly it. Like it'll just continue to get stronger, which is awesome. So
Absolutely. What piece of advice would you have for people to really step into a gift that has not been seen before in the collective in like a popular way? Because I haven't really seen this before. It's very unique, and sometimes that can be a blessing, but at the same time can be a little disconcerting because you don't have anybody else to look to of like, what am I supposed to be doing here? So you have to have a lot of confidence in self of like, I was given this template for a reason. There are people that need this from me, so we're just gonna jump in. Because you and I had that session together, and girl, you just took off with it. Like you immediately started taking action and making all these cool designs and marketing and getting on social media and talking about it. I was like, go you! Like that's incredible.
I will say when we had our session together and you made me very aware of like this is something you can do right now, I was so excited, like, and I was like, oh my god, well let's do it then, like I definitely, when I have impulses that I feel super connected to, I try to follow them pretty quickly.
Hmm.
Like but I make sure it's something that I'm like certain about, which, like I had said, I had already thought about this, and then you brought it to the forefront and showed me that it's possible now. I think I had a belief that it wasn't possible right now.
Hmm.
And so with that, it was just the ignite, I was like, oh my god, well let's do it then. And I will say I went through a lot of, I guess we can call it imposter syndrome at first, when I was first trying to like put it out there. And I think it showed me that I really needed to bring a focus back to just self care.
Mm-hmm.
and stop comparing myself. Like, I have this oracle deck. It has the evil eye, and the card is like jealousy. And, it can mean a lot of different things. But one of the things in there is the compare and despair monster has its eye on you. And, with social media, it's so easy to look at someone who has, who knows, 200,000 followers, and like their feed is just incredible, whatever, right? And it's so easy to look at that and just think less of yourself. And which is so not true. And it's so sad that we do that. Um, but it's something I'm aware of. And so when I start to do that, I'm really trying to just cut that off and be like, you have no one to compare to. Nobody does. Like, we're all so unique and individual, and to try to be like another person is such a disservice to this world. Like, so I would say when I was first jumping into these energy tattoos, like, I had to really like face to face with myself and my self-worth. I was putting it on the same level as success, and that's not true.
Mm-hmm.
They're not the same thing. And that's been a lesson I've been really working through, because I just think sometimes if I'm not super busy or getting a lot of people asking for my abilities, that I'm not successful, and or that I'm not worthy. And it's like, no, like, and it's funny because the thing that's making you not successful is because you think you're unworthy. Yes.
Yeah.
So many light bulbs, just going off. And like, I'm really just focusing on loving myself and self-worth right now. And I think that's a life journey. um but that focus has really helped me to really just, I don't know, feel solidified and confident in what I'm doing, even though it's not a thing that's really done much or has been. um but just knowing, like, I don't know, it like, I've got an Aries moon. I'm a
Mm-hmm.
very like pioneer spirit, and like, I love that like, I'm gonna bring this into the world, like. So yeah, I guess shifting the fear into excitement and realizing, like, because you have no one to compare to, you get to do whatever you want.
Mm-hmm.
um and that's what I'm all about, is no restrictions. So
It sounds like this gift with the tattoos, as you're talking about self-love and self-care, those are what these are actually rooted in. It's like
yes,
it's a deeper energetic framework that you are permanently putting on self, of a reminder of, I love myself so much, I am putting this on me. So I
yes,
can remind myself every single day.
exactly. Yeah, I think growing up I had a lot of I was always told I was too much or too
Mm,
sensitive or very like, I think my individuality got confused with ego sometimes, and people thought I was just like full of myself, when it was like, no, I'm just weird. Like, like, so I'm gonna do it the way I want to do it. And yeah, I think if you're the first to do something, like, that should be a plus, not a negative.
mhm. I see this as something that is going to be worldwide. Like, it's going to be very big. Like, you are going to be the pioneer of this, like you were saying, and there's going to be all of these artists that follow suit. Maybe not even just in tattooing, but like other types of artistry as well, right? So what we had discussed was, girl, you had already put in all the grunt work with the hard stuff. The energy healing is easy. The witchcraft is easy. That is stuff that is intuitive to your soul. You already did all of the prep and prepare for that, all of those arduous years. Let me fine tune my human hands to figure out how to bring this gift into the collective. This part is meant to be easy.
100%. And it's funny, the amount of time it took me from when I first apprenticed to actually start tattooing full time was, during all that time, I was really getting into my craft, like witchcraft, also my artistry. But definitely witchcraft. And yeah, it's just funny the way it all aligns, because now it's like, well, I would have never had all that back then, to do this. So divine timing. It's real.
I think that's a testament to of the more that you heal yourself and go on a self-love journey, the more magnetic you become, because that's a follow through that
Yes.
I've seen with your story is I just have these opportunities to just they don't just land in your lap. You worked very hard for them
Yes.
by doing the self-awareness and self-love, but they align with you very easily when it's time because you went through that journey.
Yes. Because yes, when I was really depressed when I was young, like the negative self-talk was my worst thing. Like I told myself constantly that I was not worthy, like continually. And that does so much harm to yourself and your worth and confidence. And therapy, talk therapy, it does not work for everybody. I do not think it works for everybody, but it works for me. And it really helped me with that. So yeah, like back then I feel like, yeah, like I always felt like I wasn't the one that stood out, like I was never picked, like I was never the person. And it's because I hated myself. Like I was not exuding a great energy, So yeah, like I feel like in spirituality, like if you don't know what to focus on self-love. Like that's going to bring you so much healing no matter where you're at in your journey.
That was a bar.
Thank you.
I love that. So, where can people find you? How do they book your services? Whether that is tarot, oracle, getting a customized pair of shoes. And I know that you do a different pair, not a different pair, but a different type of shoes as well. You do the memorial pieces, but then you also do an astro shoe. Is that right?
Yeah, like
Okay.
I honestly can do shoes any kind of way. Like if you wanted a pair of shoes that are going to bring you a ton of luck and abundance, I could totally do that. Which I've been thinking about making my own pair of those.
Yeah.
Um, um, but so yeah, also the natal chart energy of shoes. So like people will give me their natal chart and then I'll just infuse that into the shoe, like your essence, right? But where to find me? So my website is corpsey.com. So it's corpsey.com. Um, through that, you can find my email and my Instagram. I do think my best portfolio at this time is on my Instagram. I need to update my website more. It'll happen eventually. But email is the best way to get a hold of me. Like I said, that is on my Instagram and my website, but it is just Zelda Morningstar at corpsey.com is my email. Um, Shoot me a message for specifically tattoos is the best way for email. You can still email me for shoes, but you can also find my shoe link on my website under shop, and that just read all the description and it will tell you the information that you need to email to me once you purchase the shoe through my website. And also my spiritual readings right now are also on my site like that, to where you would read everything, pick the reading, purchase the reading, and then email me the information that I would need. But all my tattoos, just shoot me an email. Hey, I'm interested in an energetic tattoo, and then I'll hit you back with, okay, well, this is what I need from you then. So yeah, email's the best.
Perfect. And you have a portfolio not only of just your tattoos, but also the new tattoos that you're offering. I've seen a lot of posts on Instagram having slideshows of all these really amazing designs and what they're for, like examples of what persons could get.
Yeah, I do. So I have some energetic flash that is already infused energy that you could just pick and put on your body and it will work with that frequency that I have already put into it. Um, so those are options that I do think those are only on my Instagram right now. But if you were to email me, if you don't have an Instagram, I would totally send you anything that I have available. But yeah, so you can either do it that way or we can create something 100% customized to you.
Love that. And I'm going to put all of Zelda's information in the description down here below. And so everybody will have quick access to reach out to you.
Awesome.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Zelda. This is absolutely amazing. I loved hearing about your story and your journey. There were so many weaves and bobs and turns and connections. It was very fun and very dynamic to hear about your journey.
I really, really appreciate it. And thank you for giving me this opportunity and platform. It has been wonderful talking to you.
Absolutely. And we thank you all for watching as well.
Yes.
All right, everybody have a magical day.